Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jacob, joined as always by Carver, coming off another Dortmund win. Just flying, man. It's happening. A few weeks ago, I was like, we're not making Europe, definitely not making Champions League, and now what? Are we just 3 points off it, getting this win away at Hoffenheim? But
Yeah,
I mean, outside of Dortmund, how are you feeling? How's it going?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, coming towards the end of the season, I'm feeling a lot more positive than pretty much every one of us anticipated here. Like you mentioned, 4 out of our last 5 Bundesliga games have been very heroic wins. This last one being at Hoffenheim, so a road win as well. Not to mention, too, I wanted to, before we get into Hoffenheim, the women's team, BVB Frauen, also had a big win against Schalke over the weekend. We've been previewing this for quite some time now, and they got the 3 points to widen the gap between first and second. They're still at the top of their table, but now a few more games to really lock in that first place for the women's team. But yeah, 2 big wins for Dortmund across the board this season. Doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. And that's kind of a good transition talking about the Dortmund women's team because I noticed over the weekend, this weekend, my wife and I did a little cabin weekend with some friends. So I was a little off the grid. I had to watch soccer on delay, but I did notice our Discord was kind of popping off during the women's match, which was really awesome because we started a little chat for BVB Frauen in there. And we have been hyping up this game, the Frauen Rivierderby, back again because I mean it's a match that means a lot. The women's team has been growing so much over the last few years, and they've been flying up through the ranks. But this was a really tough kind of title contending match, and it's the big derby, right? And it's cool to have that back in a very meaningful way. And it was really cool to see that people were actually watching Sunday morning and getting involved in the chat too.
Yeah, what a game. 10,000 people in attendance, as much as we can easily dunk on Schalke and their fan base. They came out in numbers as well, so it was really cool to see the support across the board. All the more sweet for us to actually get the win and celebrate at home in front of their fans as well. It was a really fun and exciting game, too. If you haven't gotten the chance, feel free to watch the replay. It's still on YouTube. It was streamed live, obviously, for the game, but it's still up online. And even if you didn't want to watch the full game, you could skim through and look at the highlights because they're really fun to watch as well. It was a late winner here towards like the, what was it, 88th minute, if I'm not wrong, 87th. And it was a really fun game. Yeah, I got a quote here from Marie Grota, the captain for the women's team, saying, "Today was a big step towards the championship, but we still have to get our points in the remaining games, and then we can celebrate towards the end of the season." And it was cool to see the players at the end of the game too, chatting together. They all, got in their circle together and they were Derby Sieger, Derby Sieger. Yeah, it was fun to watch. And then obviously going up to the supporting fans and all doing that together too. So you got to see like a big chunk, but just like a taste of the support that the men's team gets. And then you get to see it in a much different fashion, but obviously still the same passion there for the women's team, and it was just a really cool day. The last thing I wanted to say just about the women's team real quick is they have the I believe it's the final of the Price Pokal District Cup, which is tomorrow, May 1st, and that's going to be, I think, at the same time, if I'm not wrong, PM Central, or excuse me, local time for Dortmund. I could be wrong on that, but you could check on foosball.de for more information for their schedule and everything and more stats. But just wanted to throw that out there because it's going to be a little bit longer until they're actually back into the Verbands League. I think it's later this weekend. But until then, yeah, they got another cup game here tomorrow. But
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's just going to get more exciting as the season for them winds down and just see where they go next year too. And then, as I said, it was hitting on our Discord. I'll just take the time now to give the plug because if you're not already part of our Discord, we are going to pull some questions from our Discord specifically. Where Carver and I both aren't using social as much these days, and Discord is just a nice little community that we built with people who listen to the podcast. Carver and I are both from St. Louis and live in St. Louis, but it's people literally all across the world. And I did want to give a shout out to Latham and Samuel from Nashville, who I believe met in our Discord, met up and went and watched a Dortmund game together, and now they're going to be starting an official Nashville supporters group for Dortmund. You see the club has been posting about the supporter groups in the U.S.
yeah,
so much lately. There's a really cool piece on Brooklyn Bruce and Banter. Shout out to Clarence and those guys there. I also shout out New York a lot, but it's because I've got to go watch a game at Banter in Brooklyn. So friends of the podcast, but it's
yeah,
cool to see all these different supporters groups across the U.S. and another one that's going to be officially kicking off. And I don't know if we play a little part in it. We kind of got these guys together and they met on our Discord, which is, they'll take some credit. No, but that's what our podcast is about. It's about getting to know other Dortmund fans, especially in the States. Because when I started watching Dortmund, it was just me. And then I found Carver, so we text. But I was like, oh, I know there's other people like me who are watching alone on their couch. So if we can get people connected and watching more Dortmund together, this club is about the fans. It's what drew me into this club. So if we can kind of help that here in the States and beyond, then I'm game for it. So shout out to, again, Latham and Samuel. If you are in the Nashville area, if you want to get involved with them, again, the best way, they're in our Discord. So find the link to join that there. Or if you want to if you're not in Nashville, but you're looking for other ways to connect, again, Discord. Yeah. And our socials too, the BVB podcast, but Discord is kind of popping off at the moment. And it's probably my preferred medium right now. So if you can join us there. And with that wrapped, again, popping off this weekend, Carver, unfortunately, as I said, I was off the grid this weekend and this game was spoiled for me. I made it so long and I unfortunately saw the result before I saw the final score, before I got to watch the match in full. Even though I knew what was happening, like it's like 85th minute, 88th minute, I was like, okay, there's still like 3 more goals left in this game, like what? Or two more goals left in this game, because it was, man, yeah, it all came down to the wire. But so much good before that too. And I mean, we'll start with general thoughts and get in the lineup. But did you have anything?
And yeah, a tough game away. Hoffenheim, clearly it's tough for Dortmund to get results consistently against Hoffenheim. Somehow they're able to pierce through our hearts a bit. And we're missing some very valuable personnel. Of course, Schlotterbeck has been out for a while. Gross was unavailable for this game. Bayer was unavailable for this game. So you have Chan stepping up as a double pivot here with Mecha. First time Chan's played in midfield in quite some time now, at least at a starting role, if I'm not wrong. And of course, a lot was left to be desired for Chan in this game. And we'll talk a bit more about the details there, but I really like the approach. I think Kovac has gotten the game plan right a lot in his tenure, his very short tenure so far this spring at Dortmund. It hasn't exactly always been executed properly by a lot of these players, but again, the game plan has shown to be very effective, and I think it's been pretty clear here, with the early minutes of Dortmund being able to put Hoffenheim under some nice pressure, get some shots on goal here pretty early. Ultimately, Hoffenheim did kind of come back stronger in that second half. Dortmund was still overwhelming with quality, and Brandt came alive too, and had, from having one of probably the most horrendous season he's had at Dortmund, but still somehow getting probably the goal of the season is in the same game is pretty astonishing here. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of what comes to mind for me.
Yeah, and I mean, going through the full lineup, and I mean, I want to talk about Brandt quite a bit. I mean, now's the time to actually do it. Kobel in goal. We had our 3 center backs again with Benzabaini, who I really like in that role, playing that left-sided center back. Anton and Sula both get the start. Anton, we can talk about him a little more too, but man, he's been so solid as of late these last few weeks. He's been, especially with Schlotterbeck going out and us kind of being a little more worried about that. But he's definitely been stepping up. So Anton holding it down in the middle with Sula. You mentioned Chan, kind of who was dropped to the bench last week. So, and I mean, he steps in to fill the role with Gross out. So he steps in the midfield along with Mecha. Brandt is the other surprise start who also got dropped last week. And then Svensson, left-sided wingback, Rierson, right-sided wingback, Girassi up top along with Gittens, who is kind of, I would say, a surprise start here too. We see Adeyemi, who we'd probably think to get the start. And we're also in a span where we're playing every weekend now. We don't have multiple matches in a week, so it's not necessarily a rotation thing, but I liked what I saw from Gittens too. And I think overall, like we'll talk about some individual performances, but what you see from Brandt and Gittens into this match, like Kovac is getting the best out of guys. And maybe it helps that he's dropped him. We talked about a couple weeks ago, Kovac might not rate Gittens, and he's, I mean, benching Brandt. Literally last week, we said RIP Brandt boys. Like, Brandt boys have died. And he brought in a defibrillator and brought us back to life this week. But I think Kovac, along with getting the system right, he's been able to get these individual man-to-man managements correct. And now he's getting these guys performing. Maybe it takes a nice little kick up the ass and you get a ride to the bench for a little bit. But now when they come back in, it's kind of that next man up mentality. Like they're in and they're firing. And obviously we see great things from Brandt in this game. And I know Gittens didn't get the goal, but he got that PK. And And I thought he looked really solid, especially compared to the performances we've seen from him lately.
Yeah, always rated Brandt. Never had a problem with him this season. You and I both, and we've always said that, right? We've always said that this whole season. We never had a problem with him. No, yeah, that goal was phenomenal. And there were a few times where his misplaced passes resulted in counterattacks for Hoffenheim. So, and we've seen that the past few weeks really stretch out through the season. But definitely, for me, I've noticed that a lot more these past few weeks in the games against Bayern, against Barcelona. So there were some moments of that early on. But, Brandt was able to keep his head high. He kind of had like that hockey assist in the first goal too, finding Gittens out wide. And you mentioned like the lineup 3-4-1-2, Brandt sitting in that 10 role. But Gittens, even though on paper listed at that second striker, you look at the average positions and he was just pretty much out wide, exactly where he always was, right? Him and Svensson were kind of right on top of each other, stretching the pitch wide, all the way in the touchline here at times, and was obviously able to find himself in spaces where he could go V1, which is where JG thrives in those positions, and was able to, win the penalty, like you said. I think Kovac is playing a lot to these players' strengths, maybe outside of Chan in this game, but that was probably just out of necessity because of other players being absent here. Collectively, like I mentioned briefly before, but the team was able to enjoy large spells of possession here and drive forward. Again, able to put Hoffenheim under pressure. Kovac said at the press conference after the game, he said, we played well for long stretches, but we should have wrapped up the game earlier with a penalty that we missed. And then the counterattack we had with JG. By failing to do that, we gave Hoffenheim hope, and they did it twice too. The 2-2 was a blow, and I'm pleased that we scored the last move. I can understand that Hoffenheim are very upset about this. My team showed that we have the will to the end, and that's how you fight to achieve your goals. And Anton mentioned, and I could touch on that here a bit too, but he kind of had the same sentiment of like these players and the team in general just have this really big sense of belief behind them, which has been lacking for so long now, before this season too. And I think Terzic has kind of helped in moments of that, having like, the galvanizing of the players. But we've said for quite some time now this season that the players they look like they don't care, especially on a consistent basis, week in, week out in the Bundesliga. But you're seeing slowly but surely it kind of start to turn around here. Definitely in recent weeks, if you look at the form, again, 4 out of the last 5 Bundesliga games have been wins. And the one game that we did not win was just the draw in Munich. So results are following outside of the attitude and the effort for the players that are producing these past few weeks.
Yeah, and I think part of the attitude and I guess approach is like there can be such a benefit to like the underdog mentality, but the belief is totally, I guess it's not totally different, but like you need that too, and not just playing with a chip on your shoulder, but like with a real purpose. Like you can be the underdog, but just be looking to spoil the party, right? But there's like a real sense of urgency and purpose and like what the goal is. And they said it on the broadcast a couple of times, like Kovac is brought in to get nothing less than Champions League. And I think at the time we're like, that sounds nice, but there's absolutely no way. And now it's like, oh, that's perfectly within reason at this point, especially when you look at our upcoming matches. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but you just see it in the performances week in, week out, like minute by minute. I think there is some complacency, or at least like Hoffenheim came out in that second half very strong. They turned up the intensity quite a bit. It's such a bummer that if we would have scored that penalty, totally changes the game, and I think we would have kept going. But at the same time, when Hoffenheim gets back into it, like you see this different Dortmund than what we've seen all season long, where I think that's where in those moments, Dortmund kind of turns on itself to where, or kind of goes back into their shell. Like they don't believe anymore when they let a goal in, but that's not what we see now in this Dortmund. They say, move on. Like they scored, whatever, move on. Let's keep playing. Let's keep doing our thing. And you see that in the substitutions too. I know, because when we see Reina and Chukwuemeka come on, I know there was a bit of formation shift where, because Chukwuemeka came on for, I think it was Sula, but then Chan drops back in the center back role. So, but it's still 2 more attacking players who are stepping into that midfield, and it's just not letting up. And at that point, we were leading 2-1. So you could still think maybe you do. I don't think we had any other defending options really to bring on, but it's still a very kind of attacking. Like we want to go for that third goal if possible. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out until the very end. But it's just a completely different mentality set. or mindset that we have this year. It was really cool. If you missed the episode last week, I don't think it's too dated, where we were joined by Jake from 50 Plus Donor, but kind of talked about him as a neutral on the show. I always love having him come on, because you can see, I mean, we're very biased, right? And we kind of ebb and flow a lot with how Dortmund does in the week, but he's able to look at Kovac and Dortmund more, I think, holistically, or just that neutral approach, which was really cool to hear his take on Kovac, and especially seeing Kovac, what his other roles in the league, or like other appointments that he's had throughout the league, and to see how that approach is now with Dortmund, and why it's been a good thing, and why he's been able to motivate in the way that he does, where it's been such a positive for this group.
Yeah. I think Anton is one of those biggest beneficiaries of something like this too. I mean, like you mentioned, he's really stepped up since the absence of Schlotterbeck. In one of his post-game comments, he just reiterated the sentiments that Kovac was talking about, where he said, but the way after the equalizer, he was saying the way we continued to believe in ourselves, the way we turned the game around, it speaks for itself. And in the end, it's who wants it most. It's what counts. And this time, that was us. And then he added, we worked hard for this over the past few weeks, and we developed a different mentality. And you're definitely seeing that too, because Dortmund, for a long time, the buzzword around this club has been mentality issue. Is it completely fixed? No. There's been some missteps from Kovac just in these since he's been here, but still, I'm not asking for anything perfect. Hell, we were in 12th place a few weeks ago, and I was just wanting to stay afloat at that point. And Kovac has clearly turned things around here and given the players a real sense of belief, even from players that you wouldn't really expect, like Brandt. For all the criticisms he's had this year, very few players in the squad has the technical capability to pull off the shooting technique that he had like that. Of course, I mentioned Anton too. Ozcan came on in this game, and I actually kind of liked what I saw from him. The defensive positioning, the calm and collective ball movement. It kind of gave me a bit of sense of, like, this is dating back a really long time because he's been very mid, but those first few games he had at Dortmund, even I think it was his debut against like Hertha Berlin, very similar sense, right? Very calm, collected on the ball. He was able to put himself in some great positions where he could win the ball back quickly for us, or shut down passing lanes whenever Hoffenheim was trying to play on the break. So I thought it was pretty solid from him for the most part too. The one thing I didn't understand, I don't know if it was a fitness issue, but Ryerson coming off here for Kuto, because Kuto got cooked within 10 seconds of coming on, if I'm not wrong. So he's still defensively lost pretty much completely.
He also did some cooking of his own on the other end, though. So
probably.
That's
I'm just talking about from a defensive standpoint, because he came on, I swear to God, it was not more than 15 seconds before Hoffenheim got right past him.
No, you're right. But I do remember seeing that and be like, catch up, man. You gotta be ready. As soon as you step on the pitch, you got to be ready to go. It seems like he just wasn't quite switched on yet, but yeah.
This isn't exclusive to Kovac by any means, but Svensson too really impressed this game. 2 assists, his first 2 assists in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can talk about Svensson a bit more if you want, because I mean, just when he came into this, when we signed him, I guess, like, I remember just thinking, like, this is one I've been calling, like, we just need bodies. Like, that's what we need. We need more personnel. And that's what it very much, it's like, cool. We have a guy to come in to kind of rest and rotate when we need it. And did he make his debut in a Champions League? And like, I think there were some good things there, but you could still tell, like, he may be a little lacking in experience. Like, I mean, what a big jump to come from was it the Danish league up to the Bundesliga, and then jump straight in the Champions League against maybe Barcelona or something like that.
For a team that was, I mean, really at an incredibly low point too, right? I mean, arguably worse than the 14-15 season under Klopp. This team had absolutely zero confidence and close to nobody on the left-hand side to consistently perform too, especially with Schlotterbeck being out too. So Benzebaini had to slip back a bit more. So that is like purely Svensson's role at the moment. So that's a lot of weight on his shoulders, and it's a big ask for him to come in like that and, perform pretty much right away.
Yeah, I mean, he stepped in even when I thought, like, in the first match, I'm like, maybe he doesn't quite have the experience. He's not quite ready. And I almost thought, like, I think we're going to bring him in, let him get a few minutes here and there, and then maybe we'll sign him for more of a next year signing, right? But like you said, he stepped right in, 2 assists. He was so good in this game. He gets the one over to Brandt, and then the Girassi, which was also that great little run and pass by Brandt to set up that first goal with Girassi. But yeah, he was incredible, and he's been so good. And I think granted, I mean, there's been a lot of change with Kovac coming in too, but he's been such a key role in how we've been able to play and how we've been able to operate, how Kovac wants to, and just like our success this last part of the year. Like I put a lot of credit to him for being able to step into this role.
Yeah. And I hope it instills some confidence in the scouting department for this club too, because, you know, this is a perfect example that you don't have to spend 30, 35 million on a player to see some real quality in this team, because you just from reports of who we're potentially looking at this summer, I mean, you're seeing those numbers floated around a lot, even for Chukwuemeka too. And of course, it's going to be a major part of our budget, especially if we're not making Champions League. You know, there's going to be some cash inflow for the Club World Cup. I'm not going to get bogged down with the numbers, but either way, the point is the club has for a while now not really looked into the smaller markets for these sort of players. And I think this is a great example of why we can continue to do something like that and find real talent. Because, you know, the strategy of just kind of going for players that have performed somewhat well in the Bundesliga the past few years, it's produced some good signings. You know, there's the Rierson, Anton's starting to assert himself a bit more. I think Gross was a solid signing, albeit probably a year or two late. I was hoping we would actually go for Gross a little bit earlier, but either way, it's also proved to be, I mean, obviously expensive at times too, but you know, these are players that are, you know, don't have the highest ceilings. Of course, Rierson has really proved a lot of us wrong for in that sense. But again, I think this is a great opportunity and example for us to permanently sign Svensson and look into those smaller markets again and find those hidden gems, because I think that's what Dortmund are really known for, right? It's the youth players, but also just spending low and finding these gems and, you know, oftentimes offloading them for large sums of money. But hopefully this won't be the case.
Yeah, and he's still pretty young. He's 23. So, I mean, even if it comes down the road where we sign him or we sell him later on, like we could get a few good seasons out of him, hopefully more than that. Like, and he can just continue to develop. But I think he's a player if he just continues on this path, and like, yeah, the option is to get money out of him later.
He's a player that would. I was just going to say, I think he's also a player that's going to invest into us too.
Yeah.
You know, he really embodies of what the club stands for, and at least supposedly is supposed to stand for. And, you know, I love him. He's, again, I've said it before, he's a Rierson on the left, you know?
Yeah. I'm not saying I can't wait to sell him for 50+ million later. That's not what, like, that's not what I'm hoping for. But I'm saying, like, at his age, you could still sell him at 26 and have a few good seasons out of him if it comes to that option. But as you mentioned, like kind of getting back, I like what you mentioned about giving props to the scouting and hoping they get confidence out of this too, because you can look at the complete flip side of Kuto, who I think I can't keep up with what's going on with Kuto. I feel like we already are locked in with the obligation to buy him if we didn't already. But what was his price? Like
just under 30, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, between about 25 and 30.
And he's one we've been begging all season to see a little more from, right? Yeah. And then Svensson comes in just on the left side and has given us so much.
Blows
more.
Him out of the water.
Yeah. I would argue he hasn't had as much competition because it's, I mean, we've seen Pinzabaini like now shift back a little bit. He's been able to slot straight in. But yeah, when Kuto has had his opportunities, like we haven't always seen it. There's like tiny little moments here and there, but overall, like we haven't quite seen it. I do want to talk about this third goal, the winner. Yes. And just the little controversy around it, because I could go either way. Obviously, I'm so happy we got it. But if they would have called a foul, if they would have called it back, I would have seen that too. I think, like, I mean, the knock on Bauman's head is kind of ridiculous. He was definitely hamming it up so much to where he was just kept laying on the ground.
I don't know. You see the welts on his head after the game?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I know he got hit, but I think he was sitting down as long as possible for them to really think about it. But that's where I'm like, he definitely got hit. I think you could also argue maybe he fouled Chukwuemeka. Like it was happened so fast. It was so hard to tell. I didn't even really, there wasn't a great angle to see who hit who first, or did Bauman just go straight into his feet? Like, did Bauman even get the ball? I don't really know. Like, I didn't see the camera angles to really see what happened, but I would not have been surprised if they called a foul and took it back. At the same time, like if Bauman just hit his feet though, then that's a foul and a penalty. So I don't know the call. I just wanted to get your take, and if you thought it was a foul, if you thought everything was good, I don't know.
Well, I was obviously very nervous just because of the circumstances of the game, but I'll be honest, I don't really see where the foul could have been for Chukwuemeka. Could I have seen it maybe called back because of the incompetence and just the inconsistency of the officials in this league at times? Sure. But after the few replays I'm watching, I'm like, I don't really know what Chukwuemeka could or did do wrong, or what offense he had in that he didn't go into it in a dangerous way. It's one of those really unfortunate clashes between a striker and a keeper. It's probably like the most nerve-wracking challenge, at least whenever I was an official for high school and shit like that. But I always just got nervous for those kind of challenges too, because they're so chaotic, they can go either way. But, either way, I didn't really see what the offense was for Chukwuemeka. And I think in the end, it was probably the right call, albeit very unfortunate for Baumann. I mean, hell of a game for him, not only saving the penalty, but the bravery to step out like that too. And of course, put your body on the line for that is pretty heroic too. So, I mean, fuck Hoffenheim, don't get me wrong, but credit to Baumann for really coming out there and trying to put everything on the line to scrap up the points there, or the single point. And of course, great for Anton to stay involved with the play, and a great finish as well, not only from a center half, but like, it wasn't the greatest angle for him to take that shot off anyway, and you have two defenders trying to block the shot. So I was just losing my mind. I don't really know what else to say. I couldn't believe it. I thought whenever Hoffenheim got that equalizer, I was like, oh, well, this is probably going to end in a draw, and we need to obviously get every win we can at this point. There's 3 games left after Hoffenheim, and if we get all 3, we do secure that 4th Champions League spot. And yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Chukwuemeka I don't think he did anything wrong. He has every right to go for that ball. I think it is just an unfortunate coming together. And I also think if the ref would have, I appreciate the ref was just very blunt and straightforward. And I think maybe the lack of video angles, replay angles was to our benefit, because as I said, I couldn't see anything that really prove that it was a foul, and I think that kind of went our way. There was no clear and obvious way to turn it over, so they just had to go with what was on field. So I think it kind of went our way. At the same time, it's I don't think there's much you can do about it. I don't think Chukwuemeka did anything wrong necessarily. Like I said, he can go for that ball. I'm not a keeper, or I'm a keeper coach, so I don't know if maybe Baumann would have had a better chance if he would have just stood up and tried to let Chukwuemeka try to take a shot and just been big instead of going into it. Who knows what would have happened? But yeah, we got the goal. We got the win. Like I said, unfortunately, I did watch this match knowing what was going to happen. And so maybe I wouldn't have noticed it as much. But after Hoffenheim gets the goal in stoppage time, I think it was I took note of the clock at 9. It was the 93rd and a half minute, 94th minute. And we had a goal kick. And Kobel was I saw him there was just such a sense of urgency to get up the pitch and still try and not, you know what I mean? They just gave the effort till the very last second. And that's why it paid off. There was no accepting the point. They were going for it to the very last second. And there was just such a sense of urgency. Yeah. Anton to be in that position was great, but I also that's something we've seen with Kovac is our 3 center backs are pushing so high to just maintain possession in our opponent's half. And you see Sula make a run earlier in the match too, where he has a shot, and it's just something you see from our center backs, which I really like. And that's why Anton's able to get in that position too. But you just see this desire from the entire team to get the 3 points at all costs. And yeah, man, it was also just watching this, it was and I would give anything to just Men in Black flash my brain, not know what's happened, so I could just watch this in real time, because it would have been so good. I'm so upset.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it helps too with all 3 of our center halves being more attack minded for the positions that they're in. Benzabaini, obviously primarily a fullback. Sula has played probably 50-50 at this point between fullback and center back. And whenever his whole career, he's been a bit more attack minded too, just getting higher up the field. And then Anton, same thing too. He's primarily a center half, but Kovac has played him almost as a 6 at times since he's been here too. All 3 of them are not afraid to step up a bit more, to be a bit more involved in attack, and just to go for it. And that's exactly what we needed in this game too, because 1 point was not going to suffice. Even though teams above us continue to drop points, Leipzig again lost at the weekend 4-0 to Frankfurt, so now we're only 1 point behind them. And then Freiburg only 3 points behind Freiburg here, who have picked up a lot of form since we beat them 4-1. I think they won 3 of their last 3. But either way, we're right there now, and it's in our hands. We're back at home against Wolfsburg. a Wolfsburg that are struggling immensely at the moment. They did find some form here and there towards the middle of the season, but I think they're winless in their last 8 games, if I'm not wrong. They've lost 5 or 6 out of their last 7, and not against the best opponents in the league either. I mean, they've lost against Berlin, they've lost against Heidenheim, they've lost against Augsburg. So this is an opportunity for us to really put our foot on the gas here and keep pushing, because Leipzig, I think, are going to probably continue slowing down because they're in free fall, and they play Bayern Munich this weekend too. So that's a great opportunity for us to leapfrog them next and hopefully secure this last Champions League spot. I can't believe I'm saying it, but the dream is still alive.
Yeah, so Freiburg in 4th on 51 points, as you mentioned. This is something that Jake on last week's episode brought up. Their goal differential really hurts them, and especially looking at us in the position we're in, as you mentioned, we're in 6th on 48 points. Freiburg 4th with 51 points, but they have a -3 goal differential. We're at a +11. So even if we get level on points with them and we just kind of battle with them right in that range, these last few matches, we have that advantage and we have that 4th position. But Freiburg also plays Leverkusen this weekend, which is going to be an interesting watch. You mentioned Leipzig, just 1 point above us, plays Bayern. So things are, it's in our hands. It's we were relying on other teams to drop points. That has happened. And now it's totally in our hands. We still need, if Freiburg beat Leverkusen this weekend, then that's them doing the business to secure that. And that makes it tougher. But we got 3 games left to go. So there's still, I guess it's not fully in our hands, but a lot of it is, honestly, if we can just keep taking care of business. And that goal differential is huge too. If we can, if they drop points against Leverkusen and we beat Wolfsburg, which I totally feel like we should, man, it's going to be an exciting last run in, and hit our Discord a lot earlier. And I did pose the question, how many points do you see us getting in these final few matches? So quick shout outs to Lisu, who says all dubs, 4th place, where we are UCL qualified. This is just so funny because a few weeks ago I was like, I asked everyone, where do you think we're going to land? And this was when we were 12th and people were like, hopefully 10th. That sounds nice.
Not me. I said 6th. And we're right fucking there.
I think I did say 10th. I was like, no way we're making Europe. And I'm happy to eat my own words. Shout out to Chaz, who said, given form, we should absolutely win out. 9 points. Mike1921 said 6 for sure, 7 if we tie Leverkusen, 9 if we show up and play against them. So, 6 out of 9. I know Leverkusen, that's a tough one, right? But I think, like Chaz said, given our form, there's no reason why we can't. And if we just want to look ahead of what Dortmund, our expectations as fans and for this club. I know Leverkusen was flying last year, and Leverkusen one of the best teams in Germany, obviously, but that's a team we want to be beating, right? Because we're the best team in Germany. We haven't really proven it this year, but it's a team. It's a team we need to be beating to reclaim our position.
And a few favorable things here looking in the weekend. If anybody didn't know, Maximilian Arnold, who's Wolfsburg's captain, he actually got a red card in their last game, so he's going to be absent. Both of their starting strikers, Jonas Wind and Amora, have not scored in the last calendar month, maybe even 2 months. I think Jonas Wind hasn't scored since the beginning of March. So they're really hurting for goals and confidence from their front line. It's had to be produced from other areas of the field, which, Maximilian Arnold, I think he scored one of the goals here recently, but again, he's going to be absent. Kevin Paredes, for any American fans there, I think he picked up a knock, unfortunately. Not unfortunate for us Dortmund fans, but from the American perspective, of course, he's an exciting talent. So I'm not sure if he'll be present as well. So Wolfsburg very potentially going to continue slipping down the table here. And this is a great opportunity for us to snag all 3 points. Again, at home too. I'm feeling good. I'm going to go 3-1. Win Dortmund. And even though I usually in these moments, in these games, I feel like we concede first, I think we're actually going to get 3 and then concede a dumb goal at the end from some random, whether that's an own goal, a weird deflection, something like that. But it'll be pretty much in the bag. Either way.
I wouldn't mind if we just run it up against Wolfsburg like we have done before and just let's get a 6-0 win.
That'd be huge.
I don't know how realistic that is, but if
we won 6-0 in 2023 against Wolfsburg.
Yeah. Tom Rota, first Bundesliga goal. All my hopes and dreams of him sold to Heidenheim. Is he at Heidenheim now? Oh, no, he's at Union Berlin. Yeah, I go 4-1. I do see us just coming out real hot. I think we probably concede, but I think we can bag 4, especially if Brandt's firing like he was in this last match. Who knows?
Yeah, could be. I mean, he's probably out the door here, but that would be a very nice send off. And Brandt, before this game, hasn't scored in his last 15, I think, in all comps even. So, what a time for him to finally find that form to hopefully get us over the line here. That'd be a nice parting gift, given his shit season so far.
Do you? I mean, I don't. You think Brandt goes this summer?
I do. Reports are saying Bremen apparently is somewhat interested, and Brandt is aware of the party approaching him potentially. But of course, this high salary, who knows where he could end up? I think his time at Dortmund probably is going to be coming to an end, just given the rebuild of this team. And I don't know. Yeah, I know his first season and a half or so was kind of underwhelming, and he was able to find that form. But just for me, just given the salary that he's at, him being that focal number 10. I'm expecting him to be producing a lot more, and clearly this season that has not happened, and it's just not enough for me. I think we need to be looking elsewhere, unfortunately, because you and I both know we've been big Brandt fans for the start of the show, really.
Yeah. We do have a couple other questions about, I mean, kind of transfer related. That's what everyone wants to talk about. I know we are going to do maybe at the end of the year more a full roster analysis, and kind of I was thinking we do a breakdown, basically a yes or no, in or out, and really get your guys' feedback like we always do an end of the year survey. So because we don't want to just give our opinions, we prefer that you guys are involved in this too, but we understand we have opinions and we will give those, but I really want your guys' input and feedback. So we're going to do a full kind of list analysis towards the end of the year and talk more transfer stuff in the summer, but on just a couple things, because we did get these questions in our Discord. So I want to make sure I don't leave anyone out, and they're kind of not hot takes, but it's kind of just looking ahead a little bit. Shout out to Chaz again, who said, if you had to make the decision on extending Chan today, would you do it?
I think I mentioned it already that if he's, which he probably would be, because I don't know who else would actually invest in him at the moment, but if he is looking to pretty much exclusively play as a center half, especially if we're going to be running a 3-back and take a salary cut and probably lose the captain's armband, a lot of trade-offs. But if he's fine with that, I think yes, because we're already kind of hurting for center halves. Reports are saying when Koulibaly comes back from his loan, Dortmund does have plans for him at the moment. I don't know if that's actually valid or not. If not, we're going to be needing some more investments in that back line. For all the faults that Chan has, he still is a leader. He's somehow pulled us out a lot of horrible situations this season alone. I think he could still be a rock in that defense. Just please don't ever touch midfield again. That's got to be in the contract somewhere. You are not playing as a 6 or an 8. You will not be involved in build-up by any means.
So according to Transfermarkt, his contract expires next summer, June of 2026. So I know the question is
probably not then.
Yeah, the question is, do you extend?
Sorry, I thought it was this summer. Scrap all that. No, the answer is no.
But I think if there's an opportunity to sell him this summer, if someone wants to take him, I feel like you got to do it. It's okay to move on. If not, just let him stay on next year. But we still have to bring in some other center halves, I think. I know even with Koulibaly coming back, I think you want someone else coming in, maybe a little more experienced.
Yeah, reports are saying that we're potentially interested in Robin Koch from Frankfurt, and it's so Emre Can 2.0. I don't know. I don't really understand that point, because I feel honestly Chan could be a fit at Frankfurt, but
we'll swap deal. I wouldn't extend him, but I'd say he can stay and just play out his contract next year, and that can be. But as you mentioned, definitely as a center back. I'm not saying we need another center back in to push him back into midfield. Let him stay on as a center back, but I still think I don't want to have to rely on him week in, week out. I think we want to improve if possible. I don't think Koulibaly is necessarily the improvement. I could be wrong. I think he's been getting some decent experience at Brest playing. Nope. Carver says no. I'm still played.
I don't think Koulibaly's played since February. I'll fact check myself as you finish up that thought, but
I don't check facts. I'm just going on vibes. I know he was injured.
It was February, since he's last played. I think he might have been injured, so maybe that's probably why. I think it might have just been that same groin injury, but still. But
I still think he is definitely, he's way younger, obviously, so I don't think he comes back as a starter. I think he can come back and get experience, especially if we get back into Europe. But I think Chan can stay, but probably not past 2026. The other question, and I was thinking about this during the match too, if we must get rid of Koble, who would your replacement be? I guess first question, should we sell Koble this year? Do you think Koble will stay this summer on his terms?
Seems like reports are saying back and forth. Maybe it's looking a bit more hopeful now, given the turnaround of form and just Dortmund climbing up the table. Obviously, I want to see him stay. I don't think there's another keeper off the top of my head that we could realistically land that could be at that same level of quality. Koble did take probably the first real step back in terms of his development this year compared to his rest of his tenure so far here at Dortmund. But at the same time, so is the whole goddamn team. So I can't really put a lot of that exclusively on him. I hope he stays. And if he does go, I honestly don't have an answer for any replacement off the top of my head. Besides the loanee that we sent out already, I'm not really sure. Yeah, we're going to find another man of that same quality here.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about Koble, and because when things were bad, there were a lot of reports that he was out, and I mean, kind of rightfully so. Like if the club is kind of falling apart, like he wants to play Champions League, he's such a high caliber keeper. I know we haven't seen the best of him this year, so it looked like he might be going. And I know like Chelsea's probably going to be looking for a keeper. Those were kind of some of the links. I would be devastated if he went to Chelsea. God, that would break my heart.
Me too. And they have so many other keepers, and maybe they're probably all not at the level that he's at. But just like if you look at like Robert Sanchez, of course.
Well, he's trashed. So
Gabriel Salina, which he hasn't played much. I think he's either been out on loan or injured. But they have a handful of decent keepers here. Jorgensen too, who's played a handful of games for Chelsea. I'm not going to keep going, just talking about Chelsea, but still, it's just like their keeper list is so long. And Koble should probably recognize that unless they're really planning on just having him.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
knowing Chelsea, they might not. Who knows?
I feel like Sanchez is probably out, but yeah, I don't know.
But they're a club that like buys someone with a lot of money, just given how they are, and then 2 months later, they're not really ever playing that player again. Look at Mudryk. Chelsea spent around $100 million for him, and he's played 7 games this season.
I was just thinking though, we make Champions League, I think he stays. Like I think given how we've been performing, I know we talked a lot about like Kovac staying on next year, what that looks like. There's so much more belief from like as a collective, where I think that's enough to get him to stay if we can make Champions League, even if we're just like Europa League. I think if he can. It's all the conversations that they have in the back room, but like I think you can get him to a place where he'd want to stay, and I hope he does. Because if he goes, I have no idea what our keeper situation is. Because I also wouldn't be surprised if Meyer goes just to get other opportunities. He's a little older too, and specifically because the player we brought in from Ajax, Diant Ramage, probably pronouncing his name terribly wrong, but we bought him from Ajax and then sent him out on loan to Copenhagen, where he's played, I believe, like just a few matches.
Most recently got sent off, actually.
Yeah, he got a double red card in his last match, unfortunately. He has been playing. They also have another keeper who's kind of the number one. So I just don't know if he's going to come in and be ready to take that number one spot next season. I have no idea what that looks like.
Yeah.
As of right now, I want to put him in that position if Koble leaves. Also, I want to put Meyer there. I love Meyer. I think he's great when he steps in, but Meyer came to this club knowing he's not going to be the number one. He came in as the backup, so I don't really know what the solution is if Koble goes.
I'm hoping with not only us finishing much higher up the table than pretty much everyone was originally anticipating, just with the club making some smart moves here and investing around Koble, I think that can hopefully instill a bit more confidence in him. To actually want to stay too. That's where my head's at. But these next 4 weeks, I think, are going to be, obviously, you're going to see a lot more news start to unravel here. So keep an eye out.
Yeah, we'll definitely have some more transfer news rumors as they come. And like I said, we'll need your help doing the postseason analysis, breakdown, and review and all that. So keep an eye on our socials and everything. As the season winds down, we'll talk about it more here on the show, but we definitely want to get you guys involved. So we do appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. Exciting times at Dortmund. Who knew? Like Carver, a few months ago, I was ready to hang up. I was ready to hang up the podcast. I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. And then we're back. We're just flying.
Yeah, I don't know about giving up on the show, but I was surely wanting to take a long mental break. That's
There
for
was a
damn
few
sure.
episodes. There was a couple times where we're like, let's just not do an episode. I just don't want to. Like,
Yeah, we did do that a few times. Yeah.
when we're used to the ups and downs, but we were down for a while.
And
But
to listeners, rest assured that we are going to talk a bit more about the squad and more in depth here coming up soon. I wanted to at least finish out these last few games this season and put my mental energy into that before we break down a little bit more of the departures and arrivals here and hopefully some players staying here at the squad.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. Connect with us on Discord, on the socials. You can find the links to everything in the description of this episode, and we will see you guys later.